Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan live. Status Coup, Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, in the United Corporations of America. Joining me, Louis DeAngelis, wonderful reporter who's been doing the Lord's work for us in and out of East Palestine. And you're headed back there in a few days.
Yep, yeah. Colin and I will be out there on Monday. Flights are booked. We're already starting to fill up the schedule, so definitely stay tuned for a lot more content coming from East Palestine, as well as some investigative type stuff that I've been digging into as well. So,
and I know that it was tough to get flights because there's so many other reporters that booked their flights too to go back to East Palestine. Correct?
yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Something tells me that this return trip, the town will be a little bit less busy, a little less folks around. We'll see when we get there. But I'm not expecting the same media folks that were in town for Trump's visit to still be there next week. But you never know. They could surprise us, but I doubt it.
And what did a wise person tell you? That once the cameras leave is when the cover up begins. The real cover up begins. And I think we are full in the throes of a cover up. Yep. No Kim today. She's got a family thing. So you're stuck with us. But there's a lot to get into. There's also news on the Brianna Taylor police brutality / terrorism front. We'll get into that later because the investigation into the Louisville Police Department that the Department of Justice did in the wake of the Brianna Taylor murder, the investigation is done, and they found all sorts of horrendous things. So we'll talk to Ty about that later. But we're going to continue what I think is covering the most important topic in America right now, which is the petrochemical bomb that detonated over parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and with the wind and weather, took it in many different directions. Please smash that like button. Louis, your fantastic journalism and handsome face has increased us 11,000. Count it, 11,000 subscribers in the last 2 weeks. We are knocking on the door of 140,000. I think we're 600 YouTube subscribers away from hitting 140,000. So if you are new to the community, please subscribe to the channel. Please smash that like button. We got almost 200 watching. Smash that like button right under the video, and super chats are welcome. So we're going to have a guest on in a few minutes from East Palestine because we're keeping in touch with the residents. And shockingly, when journalists actually stay on a story, almost every day you learn more fuckery happening. And that's exactly what's happening, because you and I were texting when we were hearing and seeing a flyer that went out from Norfolk Southern of them suddenly seeing the light and deciding to offer temporary reimbursement, temporary relocation for East Palestine residents, and willing to reimburse it like on a debit card. And I said, something doesn't sound right here. It sounds too good to be true. Well, we're learning today it is too good to be true. So we'll wait till we have the resident join us to share her experience. I've also confirmed other people are dealing with this too, where Norfolk Southern put out in their little flyer that they were going to offer reimbursement and relocation for the East Palestine area. Well, apparently that area is pretty narrow. So we'll get to that. We wanted to start, though. Interesting, the New York Times, a month later, but better than nothing, published this opinion piece from a former EPA bigwig. This is from Judith Enck. Why has the EPA allowed the horrific situation in Ohio to continue? Really, really important piece. And Louis, you've been digging on some of the testing. And I think some of the things Judith says in this piece, you might be able to add something to. Colin, before we read parts of the piece, did you get that video clip to work? Because this is the former EPA official who wrote the piece for the New York Times criticizing the EPA. She was also recently interviewed by CBS and criticized the EPA's response there too.
Widespread health issues after the crash.
These federal agencies know what to do, and they're not doing everything they need to do to serve the people.
Judith Enck used to be the U.S. EPA administrator for Region 2, an area that includes New York State. To start with, she says residents living in East Palestine should have stayed away longer after the toxic train derailment and controlled release of vinyl chloride.
People came home, they had soot on their cars, on their garage doors, on their houses, and they likely began cleaning up on their own. That was a mistake.
She says this is one aspect as to why people and their animals are getting sick. As of Sunday, U.S. EPA Region 5 Administrator Deborah Shore, who is responding to the derailment, says the air both inside and outside is safe to breathe, and the public water is safe to drink. This has been the case day after day since all forms of monitoring began. But people in the village and communities miles away continue to say they don't feel like themselves, with headaches, sore throats, rashes, and nausea. They're confused.
People are getting sick from something. So you can't say the air and the water are okay, because they obviously are not.
The EPA says they are testing for vinyl chloride as a part of air screenings, but they're not testing for all of the chemicals that were on the train. Could it be that they're getting sick from something you're not testing? And if so, can you explain?
You know, I'm not a medical professional, and we recommend that anybody who isn't feeling well, who shows symptoms of any illness, can seek out their medical provider, a doctor, a nurse.
The same goes for chemicals like dioxins that could have formed while vinyl chloride was burning.
We're not currently testing for dioxins. We're considering it. Dioxins are ubiquitous in the environment. They were here before the accident. They will be here after. And we don't have baseline information from this area to do a proper test, but we are talking to our toxicologists and looking into it.
Enck calls that an oversight by the EPA, who she says have scientists who can figure out possible breakdown chemicals, because those might just be what's causing people's health issues. And at the same time, Enck says the EPA needs to also test indoor surfaces besides the air.
That dermal exposure and also inhaling chemical compounds can cause adverse health impacts.
The EPA says they're not at this time,
that's good.
saying
So
use house.
here you have a former EPA regional administrator, because the EPA is broken up into 5 districts, basically blowing the whistle like, you guys are testing the wrong way. You're not testing for certain things.
Right.
The way these people should have been told the proper way of cleaning, whether to be cleaning in their homes at all. And her New York Times piece, by the way, shout out new YouTube member Megan, new YouTube member Lauren. That comes with 3 other new members. Got to get this in because you guys are who are funding Lewis's return trip. Welcome new Status Coup member Cheryl, Sherry, and Isaiah. So that's 5 members today. Hopefully we can get some more. But in the New York Times piece, if you have it, Colin, she wrote, officials didn't mention that the plume could rain dioxins and other enduring poisons down on the community and others downwind. And 2 days after the burn, residents in the 1-by-2 mile evacuation zone were allowed back into their homes before any testing for dioxins and other contaminants on the surfaces inside had been done. Dioxins are some of the most potent carcinogens on Earth. There's no safe dose for humans, and pregnant women and young children are especially vulnerable to their effects. But even now, a month after the derailment, the people of East Palestine don't have solid information about the risks they and their families face, whether they have already been exposed, whether they have already been exposed, what they should be doing to avoid future exposure, and whether they just need to move. Why would the Environmental Protection Agency allow this horrific situation to continue? It should have ordered comprehensive testing the very day of the burn. It should have told residents, especially pregnant women and families with young children, not to return home until it was safe to do. Instead, it timidly stood back, leaving local authorities, corporate interests, and the rumors to fill the void. In lieu of a comprehensive plan, the EPA appears to be playing a game of crisis whack-a-mole, waiting and then responding to the news cycle. This is no way to safeguard our communities. We'll read more, but that's pretty striking because we are now 2 days ago was the month anniversary of the controlled release, which everything I've learned and you've learned was not controlled.
No.
And you're talking to people, and I've talked to people today that are saying it stinks worse in town now than it did a month ago.
For sure. I mean, controlled whack-a-mole, or crisis whack-a-mole was a good way to put it there. Basically, the only reason now that dioxins are even part of the conversation is because residents were learning about this and hammering the point home, hammering officials. Why aren't dioxin testings being done? Why aren't dioxin testings being done over and over and over again? So that was the thing that popped up into the media. Now they're getting the tests for it. I've spent the last week or so now digging through all sorts of information, particularly regards to the air tests that are going on in people's homes, the ones that people were getting saying like, yep, you're safe to go home. Everything is fine. So I've been actually talking with an expert who is a chemist. He's an expert in toxicology, very well versed in a lot of these topics. And he's kind of helped point me in the right direction of some other things we should be looking into too. And for him, dioxin isn't even necessarily the biggest concern. It is definitely a concern for him and others as well. But there's several other chemicals that are byproducts of vinyl chloride that, when burned, are created. So, you know, when the vinyl chloride is set on fire, it doesn't just stay vinyl chloride. It turns into all sorts of things, dioxin being one of them, formaldehyde being one, phosgene being one of them, as well as hydrogen chloride. It's important to note that some of the testing devices, and I'm going to get into more of this in a piece I'm working on right now and will come out later once I have a little bit more of the details, but the devices that you saw in that video and that are being used in these home tests are not necessarily meant to be able to test for all of these things at one time. Can it test for some of them? Yes. But the way that they're doing it does not look great. To get even beyond that, though, folks in a lot of cases are being told right now, to your point.
Well, wait, I want to pause you for a second.
Yes.
Because you are digging on a lot of stuff, and which is hard as a journalist because we're not chemists. So we have to talk. You've been talking to chemists, toxicologists, etc., and then trying to learn it. But one thing that I've been told, and I think you've been told, is a lot of the devices that the EPA is using, or Norfolk Southern, because remember, the company was the one originally doing the testing, the testing measurements they're using are really meant to find like suffocation levels of vinyl chloride or other contaminants that you would be looking for in like an industrial accident, and are not looking for lower quantity levels of the toxins that could still cause health problems.
Yeah, basically that's the case. So maybe not to the point of suffocation levels for some of these things, but it's definitely meant for measuring larger quantities. There are definitely better devices that would be much more well suited to test for this in a residential setting like is happening right now. That's absolutely for sure. Especially when, to your point that you brought up before, we have residents right now complaining of smells worse than when this almost initially happened when they came back into town, happening today, right now, today and yesterday. For those of you who haven't necessarily been staying right on this, Norfolk Southern just this week started digging up the tracks and digging up all of the stuff that they buried underneath the tracks when they haphazardly were trying to get their railroad back open again so that they could start printing money again. So now all of this stuff that they buried underneath is being dug up. There's dust and all sorts of stuff being kicked up into the wind, blown around town. I've got text messages from folks that I'm working on confirming who live right in town who are saying, you know, they're claiming they're washing the trucks down and stuff like that. And they're saying they're definitely not washing the trucks down. They're getting mud and dirt all over the place, all sorts of stuff like this. And it's getting all over town and people are getting sick again. We did a live stream the first night we were there last time with Jenna Catone and some of her neighbors. Jenna messaged me the other day saying it smells way worse than before. She called Norfolk Southern trying to set up the, hey, I need to be relocated. They gave her the runaround. I think ultimately she's still in the process of getting it figured out. But they sent these air testers back to her house and they were like, oh yeah, we can smell it too, but it's probably butyl acrylate, which is another chemical that was on the train. that conveniently is the one with the lowest odor threshold of all.
And they told her it's not, they told her at a low threshold, it's not a threat to human health. But I spoke with Melissa Mays from Flint, who's become an expert because she's had to, and it is a threat if you're breathing in butyl acrylate continuously. The other problem is the company that is telling her this, CTEH, is the contractor for Norfolk Southern, who has a long track record of falsifying data and essentially lying.
Right. And not to mention, too, the half-life of butyl acrylate, which means essentially it's like the rate at which it starts to go away when exposed to the air. At this point, there would the amount of butyl acrylate that would be around would be very, very minuscule, if any. What scares me more, though, is, okay, butyl acrylate, even if you were to buy their argument that butyl acrylate has a low odor threshold and in small doses you're going to be fine, which, again, to Melissa's point, probably not even the case. It's not going to be good for you to be breathing this in all the time anyway. There are at least 3 other chemicals that would have been byproducts of vinyl chloride set on fire that have a higher odor threshold, meaning you could smell them before they would be, after they would be a level of concern. Meaning, if you can smell these gases, you're already above the exposure limits. So formaldehyde, if you're smelling the formaldehyde, it's something like 5 times more than the exposure level that you're supposed to be set by guidelines by OSHA. Phosgene has an odor level that is higher than the level of where it would be a concern. So again, if you can smell it, it's already above the level of concern. And lastly, hydrogen chloride has an odor level higher than the level of concern threshold, right? But these guys are going in there with their testers that aren't going to pick up a lot of these things for a variety of reasons that I will be able to outline for you soon. I'm still working on some of the details here. They're going in with their machine being like, look, VOC is less than 0.1, doing this very broad, non-specific test with a device that this isn't the perfect device to be doing this with, and telling you it's fine, and telling you it's probably the one chemical that it would be fine to be breathing in, fine, in quotes. But when in reality, it could be at least, these are just 3, right? These are just 3. There are more things that are byproducts of vinyl chloride, of other chemicals that were on board the train, but they're conveniently just telling people, yes, it's this one that's going to be less harm for you. But they have no way to know, because they're not specifically testing for formaldehyde. They're not specifically testing for phosgene. They're not specifically testing for hydrogen chloride. They're just doing these broad tests where the specifics get lost.
And the entity that is testing for dioxin, which is the chemicals that the former EPA administrator is warning about, Stephen Lester from the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice, he's an expert, have been warning about. Aaron Brockovich has been warning about. The company that is doing the testing for dioxin is Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern is doing the testing for dioxin, and the EPA is overlooking it. So it's essentially the arsonist that burned down your house is doing the architecture plan to rebuild your house. This is madness. It makes no sense. And frankly, in this country, we have a sickness. It's called corporations that have bought media. And because the media have basically stopped covering this, short of a few updates here and there, they'll cover it tomorrow because the Norfolk Southern CEO is testifying before Congress. Politicians, so that they could get a photo op and some viral moments, will give it to the Norfolk Southern CEO, just like politicians gave it to, in 2016, former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder. They do this on both sides, Democrats and Republicans. They'll yell at him. They'll try to say who knew what when, and, try to look like the good guys and gals. And then a week to 2 weeks later, never mention East Palestine or Flint again. That's how politics is. So don't get it twisted. You will see some viral moments tomorrow with the Norfolk Southern CEO being pummeled. But none of these politicians are actually doing and acting with urgency for these community members in East Palestine. And we're going to have a resident come on shortly. But Norfolk Southern got some good press over the weekend because they started sending out flyers that they had a come to Jesus moment and decided they were indeed going to pay for temporary relocation. And they framed it as for any anyone in East Palestine who wants to be temporarily relocated. And they even put in the flyer that this does not waive your ability to sue us. And I said to Louis, this sounds too good to be true. And we're learning today, again, we'll have a resident on in a few minutes, that that's only for some of East Palestine residents, not all of East Palestine residents. And the thing that I find so shocking, in Flint, it was an 18-month original cover-up. There were multiple covers up, but it was 18 months where they told everybody, you're fine, everything's fine. The water was not brown right away. Not the whole town did not know right away. The whole city did not know right away. But here, you have over a month later, it's not as urgent in the media. We're the ones trying to keep it urgent because it's a environmental and humanitarian calamity. But it smells worse. And if it smells worse, what do you think is making the town smell worse? They're actually, you could explain it, they've been digging up the soil. Why do you think it smells worse? Because all that contamination is coming as they dig it up and going back into the air, while they still continue the aeration process, which is taking the chemicals out from the water, which is also going in the air. So Bob Bocock said it, I think in an interview to you when you were there, they're basically recontaminating these people every day.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's a couple of things to unpack here. So number one, the stuff that they buried in the soil, right after this to get the railroad back open again as fast as they could. When that stuff's buried in the soil, I mentioned half-life before, right? The chemicals will go away much, much slower when they're buried like this. They're not getting as much oxygen and air and sunlight and whatnot exposed to it to disperse, things like that. So when they dig it up, these chemicals are much more potent than they would be if they hadn't been buried and kind of been released into the air initially. Not saying that releasing it into the air initially was anyway the right idea anyway, but when it was buried, it makes these chemicals degrade in a much slower way. So when you dig it up, you're now releasing all of this stuff into the air, like you said. There's dust anytime the wind blows, all of this stuff. It's not a small site. It's not like the whole thing is covered in tarps and they're sucking the air in. Like, it's a mess is what it is. It doesn't look organized or neat or anything like that. They're digging up dirt, and this is right on the edge of downtown. There's still at least while I was there's still train cars around, heavy machinery moving in and out. It is not like a neat and tidy situation going on. Right next to the tracks, essentially very close by, is Sulphur Run, which is that body of water that you mentioned. So if any of this stuff is continuing to move over into Sulphur Run, which would be difficult for them to prevent it from happening just based on the proximity. So some of these contaminants are continuing to get into Sulphur Run, which feeds into Leslie Run, which is the site in the park where I did the interview with Bob Bocock, where Bob Bocock was also interviewed by other reporters, where we kind of reacted to some of that last week. And yes, the Leslie Run in that park crosses essentially right over the water table where the wells for the drinking water supply come from. So the water's getting it, the air is getting it. Again, do we know if the water, like the ground drinking water, is necessarily getting it? Not really, because they're not doing the appropriate tests. Again, as Bob Bocock says, they need to be testing that, every day or every hour for him and also for residents in town to buy that the drinking water is fine.
Also, that the temporary dams that the company is putting together these dams, not the EPA. Yeah. They're overflowing right on top of 5 groundwater wells.
Yes.
And right next, by the way, the dams with the contaminated water overflowed. Then the company and the EPA tried to play it off like, oh no, this was expected. Well, if it was expected, that's pretty bad planning, because it's overflowing right on top of the groundwater, which you've explained. There's very narrow distance between the groundwater wells and the top.
According to the Source Water Protection Plan put out by the Ohio EPA, the groundwater protection in East Palestine is listed as 0 feet because there is no protective clay layer between the surface and the water supply. It's mostly like loamy, soft soils and whatnot. So if there are contaminants on the top of the grass, essentially, and it rains really hard, or the creek floods over, it's very likely that this stuff is essentially very, very easily getting down into the groundwater supply. again, this isn't even necessarily coming from me. This is coming from water experts like Bob Bocock. And then again, from the Ohio EPA website, it says that the protection layer is 0 feet, and that the issue is because there's not a protective clay layer. Like, I'm not like doing some crazy thing to figure this out. This is talking to water experts and looking at the information provided by the Ohio EPA.
Louis. We're journalists, so we can't do it. But when are the citizen arrests happening? We need some citizen arrests of the company, these government officials that have basically left these people there in the sacrifice zone. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but when I hear Bob Bocock is Aaron Brockovich's partner. He's known as one of the best hydrologists in the country. He's a water expert. Aaron Brockovich, how they got together was when she was doing her whistleblowing and great stuff in California, she got connected to Bob Bocock, who has 30 years of experience as a water treatment engineer. When he's saying that basically the way they are handling this, not just with the testing, but the way they are trying to clean it is recontaminating people, that stands out to me, because what I'm hearing from the residents, and you and I are doing daily check-ins with residents, is basically our symptoms go away if we leave the town for about a couple hours, definitely a day. And then when we come back, especially into our homes, within 15 minutes, we feel like our eyes are burning, dizzy, nausea. That is somewhere that everyone should be evacuated. Everyone should be evacuated. And I get it. Not everybody wants to leave. You know, there are some people that want to move on. You and I have talked to people. There's a little friction in town right now because shockingly, the business community is pissed off and wants to, you know, East Palestine great again. And let's get back to normal because this is hurting business. And others are like, no, we shouldn't be like setting up events and fairs to bring people back because this is a contamination zone. But at the end of the day, again, it's not being reported anymore by the media with the urgency that it is. But as we speak, children are inhaling this shit. Elderly are inhaling this shit. Adults are inhaling it. Not to mention, they could say the city water is safe, but I think Aaron and Bob put it well. It could be safe at this hour of the day. Tomorrow, it might not be safe, depending on how the contamination is moving. And then you have Norfolk Southern is continuing to screw people. I just texted with the resident. She'll be on in a few minutes, but Colin, let's show this flyer that we have, because residents were at least getting a little relief. Over the weekend, they got a flyer at their homes from Norfolk Southern. As soil work continues at Norfolk Southern's derailment site, some residents close to the derailment site may notice additional odors. Shock. Yes, that's an understatement. Norfolk Southern has agreed to provide additional financial assistance that may include temporary lodging, travel, food, clothing, and other necessities. This assistance will be available to residents of the East Palestine area, including the portions of Pennsylvania within a mile of the derailment site. Residents who would like to take advantage of this offer should contact the Norfolk Southern Resource Hotline at the number, blah, blah, blah. So Louis, what do you hear? I hear anyone in East Palestine and folks in Pennsylvania a mile in distance from the derailment site. Is that what you infer?
Yeah, no, it makes it seem like, if you want to leave, we'll make sure it's taken care of. No big deal. No problem. Just give us a call. We'll get you all squared away. Here's your debit card. But in reality, again, which we're going to find out in a second, it is absolutely seemingly not to be the case. The resident that we're about to have on seems like she's been having some trouble with this, or some information about this. You've been speaking with her. I don't know all the details, but I'll say too beforehand, this isn't just like a couple people being affected by this. Again, I've reached out to folks and let them know that I'm coming back into town next week, and I'm getting text messages from folks that we didn't get to interview on camera last time who are like, hey, this is getting worse and worse. Like, I want to talk now. I want to get out and share the story. So again, for those of you watching, we got almost 750 people watching right now. Number one, if you haven't pressed the like button, please like this so that we can get it out to more folks. But number two, again, I'm going to be back on the ground again for another week in East Palestine next week, providing more updates here. The only way that we're able to do any of this is by folks like you continuing to support this. If you've got $5 to $10 a month, to become a member to make it happen. It's not cheap to be able to go and do these sorts of things. It takes a lot of time. I'm spending a ton of time while I'm not there, going crazy, learning all of this stuff that I'm sharing with you right now. Jordan is spending a bunch of time trying to connect folks together. This is tough to be able to pull off. We're going to go there next week. And again, to Jordan's point from earlier, the media is mostly moving on from this. There is not going to be nearly as many journalists in town as there were the last time I was there. Not that many of them asked very many hard questions when I was there last time, but there's going to be plenty for us to uncover and share with you all. This story, unfortunately, seems to be kind of just getting started with a lot of the stuff that's going to be hidden. So I wanted to make sure we got that point in there as well.
And by the way, you buried the lead. In 24 hours is our members call with myself and Lewis. So if you are a Status Coup member, tomorrow night, 7:00 Eastern, through Zoom, you will get the Zoom link. If you are a Status Coup member, you'll get it to your email. We'll have our monthly members call, 7:00 Eastern. I'm probably going to drink some whiskey because I haven't slept in for almost 4 months with a newborn. And it's the only way I could stay up past 7:00 at this point. So Zoom, you don't have to be on camera, so you can mute your video if you just want to listen. But it's a lot of fun. We usually go for an hour or two. You ask your questions, comments, or concerns. Lewis can tell you all about being surveilled and all the behind the scenes of reporting in East Palestine. I have some things to share for members. I was approached by a documentary filmmaker the other day, so that's exciting news. But you have to be a member to get the goods. So statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as a shitty cup of Starbucks coffee a month, $5 to $10 a month. Statuscoup.com/join. As does happen live. I was just told by the resident she can't make it, but we'll tell the story anyway. So, Colin, let's show the second post from Dave on Facebook. Do you have that one?
Quick shout out, new member Zach. Thanks for becoming a member, Zach. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah. So do you have his actual post though? The words? There we go. So can you zoom in? So this is from one resident today. Anybody that lives in the East Palestine area, but not within city limits, please message me. The railroad is only giving the second check to people living in city limits. Their handouts state East Palestine area, but they are not honoring their own words. That leaves out a lot of people way closer than the outskirts of city limits. I have been fighting for this for a couple of days now, and I would like the support of the rest of the community so I can take this fight to the next level. I am currently in contact with supervision at the EPA and 2 different news outlets. So I was speaking with Dave earlier today, and I also spoke with Juza, who we've had on a few times. Her 9-year-old son, when the initial fire happened, before the controlled burn, was projectile vomiting, violently shaking. She's been living out of a hotel for 30 days. Let's show her Facebook post. And a lot of how we're finding residents is just on the Facebook groups. The corporate media can be doing this if they wanted to. The truth is they don't want to. But this is from Juza today. Today is March 8th, 2023. I'm still living in a hotel. I just went into my house in East Palestine today. Over a month later, it still reeks with the most sickening chemical smell I've ever experienced. It's almost getting worse. I can't live there again, so I invite anyone who doesn't believe me to come in and see what you think. Because unfortunately, there are outsiders trying to chemical splain the residents and tell them, oh, it's not so bad, or oh, you're exaggerating. Also, my house is older, but the paint on the door has never had bubbles on it like it does now. And this definitely looks like some kind of muddy, dusty residue that's getting worse outside on the porch. My teeth feel like they're going to fall out. I might puke, and my chest, throat, and eyes hurt. I've only been in town for roughly 15 minutes. I live 0.7 to 1.1 miles from the derailment, depending on where you measure from. A friend works with industrial paint waste management, and he says the walls of the rooms with chlorine often bubble like this. And let's just show some of the images. So that's a door. As you can see, those little dots, I think is what she's talking about with the bubbles. That's clearly some type of, I don't know if it's dust or soot. something that wasn't there before. You also see it on the floor there. At devil's advocate, you could say, well, Jordan, she's been away for a month, so maybe her house is dirty. Yeah, there's normal dust, and then there's like bubbles on your door and soot on the ground. And yeah, I mean, we've interviewed Yuza several times. She does not come across to me as somebody who's exaggerating or trying to get 15 minutes of fame. And she is another person I spoke with today. She was the one who we were going to have on, but she just got tied up. She was telling me she went down to the whatever they call it, reimbursement center.
Yeah.
And it's the same story, resident to resident. They're getting passed around like a bong from one person to another. One person tells them X, another person tells them Y, another person tells them Z, another person says, I don't know. And she was first told that she is not within the radius to get temporarily relocated. But then another person told her she is within the radius. So she technically, as we speak at almost 6 o'clock, doesn't know. But the point is, Norfolk Southern sent out a flyer saying anybody in the East Palestine area that wants to have their temporary relocation paid for, and they said it might be in the form of a reloadable debit card, reach out to this number, and residents are. And I was just told that if you are outside of the city limits, even if you still technically live in East Palestine, Norfolk Southern is now telling you this relocation and reimbursement does not apply to you. Do you think the plume, the petrochemical bomb, Lewis, stopped at the city limits?
Right. No, it's insane. And when you actually look at a map of the city limits too, I saw this in another thread in one of these groups as well. The city limits is not like a perfect circle around the derailment. There are like neighborhoods that are carved out similar to like the gerrymandering maps that we see for, when you're looking at elections. There are certain neighborhoods in the city limits, that are on the edge of the city limits that are essentially, carved out of this whole thing. So it's frankly ridiculous. And to your point about the folks getting the runaround with needing to call this number, and then they call that number, and we're like, okay, you need to call this number. I've talked to several people who've been getting that runaround, and then they end up getting the number that they started with in the very beginning, and nobody's been able to help them. It's been 5 weeks since this happened, and there's not a clear process in place. Even when I was there, I thought it was outrageous that 2 weeks after the derailment, the assistance center required people to go stand in line starting at like 7 o'clock in the morning and then sit there for hours to submit their paperwork for reimbursement. When, you know what I mean? Like every single step of the process for getting help from Norfolk Southern, they've created some sort of hoop for these folks to jump through. They deserve way better. This company has the resources. They can hire someone to build a website to do all of this sort of stuff. There's no reason these folks should even have to drive to this assistance center in the first place or even pick up the phone. That option should exist for them, yes. But the process for all of this has been so jumbled, so messy. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it.
And this is why, and I don't care, we got 800 people watching, which is amazing. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't. This is why, forget if you're a progressive, a conservative, a libertarian. I don't really give a shit what you are. The bottom line is, this is why our media system is so fucked up. Because if you watched a couple of weeks ago, CNN did a town hall on East Palestine, and they had the Norfolk Southern CEO on at the end. I think they barely laid a glove on him. They let him, cry crocodile tears, and I'm so sorry, and blah, 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 blah. But CNN has a lot more resources than Status Coup does.
Right.
By the way, sign up as a member so we can get more resources. StatusCoup.com/join. $5 to $10 a month. You could support our on-the-ground reporting. Reminder, Lewis is going back to East Palestine on Monday. Anyway, why isn't CNN following up on the fact that Norfolk Southern is basically doing an old shuck and jive and walking back their promise that they were going to pay for temporary relocation? And by the way, don't think like when you hear like, oh, they're paying for temporary relocation, like this is a desired thing for residents. I'm talking to residents. You know what a big pain in the ass it is in your life if you have kids and animals and a job to have to relocate to a hotel? Like,
right. There's several of them that are, you've got 3 kids and now you go from your house, which each of your kids have a bedroom and everything. You've got a kitchen, you can make food. And now you're moving into a hotel with the bags that you packed. and you've got some stuff at home because you can't bring it all. So your stuff is jumbled between your house, your hotel. You've got to go, you're spending extra money to go out to eat and all of this sort of stuff, or you're eating food that's not very good for you that you can cook in the microwave in your hotel room. It's a disaster. It's not like these folks are, getting rooms at the Four Seasons and there's a giant pool or something that they're all like hanging out and drinking, having margaritas in a beach chair. That is not the case. These folks are, fitting their whole family into a hotel room. They're driving back and forth into town where they've got to go to work. They've got other issues they need to deal with. This is not something that they want. These folks want to be at home. I had someone text me the other day. They were like, do you think, I'm feeling sick. I just really don't want to deal with the logistics of having to live between a house, a hotel room, and my job. Like, I'm not feeling good. Like, what do you think? Do you think I should leave? And I was like, I'm not the one to ask because I'm not a doctor, but I smelled your house when I was there and I would leave if I were you. If they can help you get out there and you can, try to make it happen, I would leave.
Yeah, it's really a disaster, because I could tell you, as somebody who I've covered communities that have been poisoned, but fortunately I've never gone through it personally. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, it's a pain in the ass just calling to try and find a babysitter for your kid. I got today, we called to try and find a little help. I got bounced around from 3 numbers. That's just for childcare. Okay. Mm-hmm. We're talking people trying to get reimbursements, relocated, get some fucking answers on testing. Who's doing the testing? What are they testing for? Is it safe for me and my kids to be here? They do have mortgages to pay. So you might be temporarily relocating them, but they still got to pay their mortgage. Oh, by the way, their home values have now taken a huge nosedive. If they want to move, they can't move. Go ask the people at Flint how it's been trying to sell their homes 9 years later. Mm-hmm. So it's just a major disaster. And it's, we could do everything we can. I mean, we're almost at 140,000 subscribers. So please subscribe. We take it to the corporations as much as possible. We surely take it to the government, but we don't have the resources of CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, and they should be on the doorsteps of Norfolk Southern saying, why are you not temporarily relocating anybody, not just in East Palestine, but I would say in a 20 to 30 mile radius, because we've talked to people 20 to 30 miles away that have symptoms. Mm-hmm. You paid millions of dollars in stock buybacks last year. Your CEO, I think, was making $20 million last year?
Something like
you
that.
Guys are corporate criminals, and now it's time to pay up. Not this temporarily relocation, because you want to know what? We're already showing that they're walking that back. Now there's the right. Flyer said for anybody in the East Palestine area. Well, apparently the area is just within the city limits. If you're outside the city limits but still live in East Palestine and your home still reeks and you still have a house that smells like a gas station, well, you're shit out of luck. The corporate media should be all over this. Frankly, the independent media should be all over this, because how would you feel in your community? And this goes for water, air, soil, uranium mining. Go talk to the Native Americans, because they've been living with this for centuries in this fucking sin of a country. Go talk to poor black and brown people who have had corporations dumping on their communities. How would you feel if you were basically environmentally poisoned? The media covered it for 5 minutes and then said, bye, good luck. We have to cover the 2024 presidential rat race.
Right.
How would you feel?
Yeah. Especially right now too. I mean, we're so far out. The fact that all of the 2024 race is now just taken over the story at this point, and I'm barely seeing anybody talk about East Palestine at this point is ridiculous.
Joining us now, he's coming on for a different topic, but I want his passion on this too. Tommy Bayless, original co-founder of Status Coup, brother from another mother. You've covered these stories. You've been to Flint with me many times, other areas. You grew up in Compton, no stranger to environmental contamination. I don't know if you've been following the East Palestine wreck.
Where I was raised, got torn down the projects because I told you this. It was built on the gas.
Why did your voice sound like a 90-year-old woman?
My voice? Oh, I forgot to turn it down.
My bad.
Go ahead.
No, remember I told you I was raised in projects called Ujima Village, and they found out in 2009 that it was built on the gas plant. They tried to sell it 2008, they tried to sell it for $1 million. And when they checked the soil, they realized that it was unlivable and they forced everybody out. Right now it's flat. It's just a part of Willowbrook Park or Magic Johnson Park. They changed the name. It's just part of the park now, but the whole thing was flatline. I had homies that died of cancer young, and we just thought it was what it was. We didn't know. Did nobody know? I get headaches to this day, and I think it's because I've been having it since I was a kid. It had to be because of the soil. To this day, I get headaches often and all the time. Yeah, I'm familiar with all that shit.
Are you sure the headaches are from that or the helium you've been sucking?
It's from your little sister.
Well, also, I was Ty. What I've been talking to Lewis, this Ohio situation is so similar to Flint because basically the media went down to Flint for about 2 weeks. Rachel Maddow had a town hall. It was urgent, but then they had to go back to covering Trump. It was 2016. They left Flint. And then the governor of Michigan and his accomplices put out, the water's getting better. The lead levels are going down. The media, because they were busy covering Trump, just regurgitated that. And then the narrative is formed, crisis over the water is better. And I feel like that's happening here because the media covered this like they should have for about a week. And now they're only giving updates. But meanwhile, residents are saying their houses still reek. It smells worse. You have residents leaving. Remember, we talked to residents. They said when we leave Flint, we feel better in a day. When we go home, we feel like shit within a day. It's the same story here.
Yeah. That's, this, I think this is, it's like almost like what they do is the new term is like clout chasing, right? So what they try to do, especially like right now when the elections are coming up, they're not letting nothing pass. You know what I mean? Because they're trying to get all these votes. They're not really. It's disingenuous. You know what I'm saying? They're not really worried about what'll happen to them. Because I think if I heard right, didn't they were supposed to get some money and they was trying to fight it or something like that, like some funding. Am I tripping?
Well,
Biden didn't want to do something like that.
Well, Biden denied a federal disaster declaration because by law, these types of situations are not eligible for a disaster because a disaster can only be declared for a tornado or a hurricane or a natural disaster. But the Ohio governor, Mike DeWine, a Republican, has not filed a state of emergency yet. And if he would file a state of emergency, this is over a month later, he has not filed a state of emergency, they would get more federal money. So go figure.
What's crazy is like what you just brought up right now about them kind of like forgetting about it. Now they're going on to the next Trump issue. Is that the same thing happened with Flint? Like, I mean, with Flint, it lasted longer, but it really doesn't matter if it lasts 2 weeks or if it lasts a year. If it's stopping and the people is not put together, it's still fucked up. That's exactly what they do. When we went to Flint and nobody was there. I mean, the relationships that we got in Flint, the majority of our relationships and the reason why people fuck with us was because they would always say, y'all are the only ones that keep coming. Y'all never gave up. When everybody slept, when nobody was talking about the Legionnaire's disease, when nobody was speaking on none of that, we went. We was there for the anniversary and everything. And it's unfortunate that this type of shit, go down like that. But this is politics. And I think this is one of the reasons why motherfuckers wanted somebody like Bernie in or somebody that really cared about it. Because if that's the case, why he can override shit. Like we're talking about the federal government. The federal government came into LA, came into Compton in 2006 and shut down all the weed dispensaries because it wasn't federally legal. They can infiltrate states and do what they need to do. It doesn't really have to be a protocol if they don't want it to be. They override everything. They just pick and choose. Period, point blank. You know what I'm saying?
And also, this is a town, East Palestine, or a village, of about 4,500 people. Norfolk Southern could relocate those people for 6 months, and it would still be cheaper than the amount they gave back in stock buybacks. So this is part of the sickness of America, because we live in the United Corporations of America, and they don't want to do it because companies and the government do not want to open Pandora's box and set a precedent of actually helping people. Because if you start spending money to actually help people and clean up a community, oh shit, the chickens are coming home to roost. And a lot of other people are going to be coming saying, all right, well, I'm glad you helped East Palestine, but what about my community that's been poisoned?
Yeah, it's a very cynical government, bro. You know what I'm saying? They have little things and they try to think, okay, yeah, well, remember what happened when COVID? That was COVID, bro. They'll try to use these things to kind of justify them holding back and not yet and be, hey, bro, if this has something to do with Boeing or has something to do with Amazon and they needed government funding like that, without, we got you. Don't worry about nothing.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Louis, before we let you go, tell people what you're working on and also what they can expect. You are going back on the ground to East Palestine on Monday. So Louis will be live from East Palestine starting Monday. We're going to be there for about a week. Like I always say, the cover-up, the true cover-up begins when the cameras leave. That's why we're going to be there. Don't yell at me. Start yelling at him right now to wear his fucking respirator, because I ain't his mommy or daddy. I've told him to wear the respirator. He's either going to do it or not, but he has the equipment. We've provided it. But tell people what they can expect, and tell people, A, why they should join us as members, and B, they should join us on the members call tomorrow night.
Yeah, for sure. So
they've been blaming you. I'm sorry. They've been blaming you, Jordan, because he wasn't wearing a mask.
Yeah, people are messaging me. Why isn't he wearing a mask?
Yeah.
They know you're a slave driver, bro. He's a slave driver. You're right.
No, for sure. But no, so yeah, I'll be back on the ground on Monday. Colin's meeting me out there this time as well. So starting Monday night, we're aiming to have a live from the city council meeting that's going to be going on in East Palestine. There are a few topics that are going to be up for question that a lot of residents have. I'm assuming there's going to be quite a lot to say about it. So I will be live from that on Monday night, and we'll talk to as many residents as we can right afterwards. Like I mentioned earlier on in this, I've been doing a ton of digging into the chemicals that were on the train and the byproducts of the chemicals that were on the train and how that relates to all of the air testing going on, and how a lot of that air testing is not necessarily going to do the job that it's supposed to be doing. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but there's going to be a lot more coming on that very soon. This sort of trip is going to be really, really important to go back to. Again, a lot of the media is no longer in East Palestine from the folks that I'm talking to there. There is going to be all sorts of things that we're going to be able to uncover on this trip. I've already got residents texting me different shady things going on that we're going to be able to go and investigate. If you're able to help, again, last time, John Farina and I were doing basically 15-hour days for a week straight, interviewing, some days we were interviewing 15 people in a day and driving around trying to find all this sort of stuff. It's not like I'm going out there and sitting around and getting one interview and that's it. We're talking to person after person after person. And when we can find government officials to talk to, I'm not afraid to go and ask the government officials the hard questions either. So if you're able to support this kind of reporting that we're doing at Status Coup, statuscoup.com/join. I saw we had a bunch of new members even join today here. So thank you all for joining here. If you do become a member, tomorrow night will be the members call. That'll be my first members call that I've actually been able to make it on. So I'm excited for that. Come say hello there. I'd love to answer any of your questions that you have. And
Ty was invited, but now he called me a slave driver, so he's not invited.
Look, he's working. You got him working 15 hours straight.
I don't got nobody working. I paid him extra actually for last trip.
Yeah, you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Because they'll take. I'm just kidding. Because they'll take it serious, and all of a sudden they're gonna be having blogs. Look, he's slave driver. That's what Ty said.
There's gonna be 10 other channels now calling me a slave driver.
I know. Yeah. My bad.
Thank you, Louis. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Ty Bayless
is Louis the new a journalist that you have?
Yeah, where you been? He's been with us for a while. Maybe you should start paying attention.
I know I should. I haven't been watching just because work has been busy, but I love that for you. He seems like he know what he's doing, and he's I need to see his reporting because I know we talked about it, and you was trying to find someone that was I guess his speed, you know what I'm saying, his temperament, and he seemed like a good guy. I gotta watch it. I haven't watched it, but based on what he was saying today, it's being out there 15 hours. That's some Jordan shit right there. That's what you would do. So that's and just in that fact, it's good. Yeah, already. You know,
listen, this kind of work, especially how we do it, which is we're not first going into these communities and saying, "Hey, can we do 2 interviews today with politicians and then go for a long lunch?" We're hitting the ground. We're talking to residents, community members, and that takes time. And then after we're done doing the interviews, you always saw me on my computer researching and all this stuff. So it's a lot of work, especially when you're independent, because CNN and all these other places, they got a crew of 5-6 people when they go to these places, producers, tech people. For us, it's 2 people. So
doing everything, sound, editing, shooting, look, you know what I'm saying? Everything, producing, all of it. And I think a lot of times, you know, when it comes to like podcasts or online news networks, a lot of people don't really realize like how involved it is to even like to find the people, to get the people to trust. You got to understand. And a lot of these communities, you know, the majority of the communities that get fucked up first are the poor communities. So the poor communities, they've been getting fucked over for a long time. So they don't have a lot of trust. And then if they see a white person, they for sure ain't gonna have no trust. So you know, Jordan or what's the reporter's name again?
Lewis.
They gotta like almost campaign to allow these people to trust them to then so they can open up and get the story. So it really ain't just let me do this. It's building relationships, it's making phone calls, it's driving everywhere, it's staying up, it's editing, it's shooting, it's doing sound. It's very, very, very involved. It's very involved even doing what he has to do like here. With this setup, if you look at it like everything that it takes, imagine when you're out there, you're going live and I got that backpack on and I got the camera on and I'm trying to make sure everything's getting seen and he's trying to get all the interviews and making sure that all this stuff happens. Then at the same time, we back at home trying to make sure the stream is straight for you. So it's very involved. So please make sure that you guys donate, subscribe, super chats, because this is the kind of stuff that we all need. You know what I'm saying? This is like you said, the things about Palestine, that shit is dying down now. It's a whole lot going on. And people still go, because when all the cameras gone is when the fuck shit start to happen. Mm-hmm. That's when all the fuck shit start to happen. But they don't have a voice and ain't nobody hearing them. You know what I mean? And that's what makes Status Coup so unique, because Status Coup, for the most part, it's always been our motto that we go in when the cameras are gone. Because that's when the real shit happens. Because you can have politicians, you can have the law enforcement, they're gonna read off a script and they gonna probably lie to you. You know what I'm saying? So after that's done, because you don't, when you see the police talk, they reading off a script. You don't see them asking nobody else. When you see government talk, they reading off a script in a panel, 15 mics in front of them. You don't see them talking to nobody else. They're gonna say what they want to say, have the rest of the world believe what they want to believe, so we can end it. That's exactly what they did with Flint. That's why it's imperative to have an independent outlet like this. Not just independent outlets, but one like this that's always on the ground, that's feeding to go on the ground, to do the work, to make sure that the truth is getting out, to make sure that we are giving the mic back to the people.
And we also need more funding to fix your shitty internet connection too. So that would be you'd be buffering like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but that's okay.
No, you're talking about that one time. No. Remember I told you.
No, this is right now.
Right now?
Yeah, you still haven't buffering. Way. It's all right though. I could hear you. We'll fix it next time. I wanna get to this story because I know we both will have some opinions. Classic New York Times headline, understatement. Justice Department finds pattern of discriminatory policing in Louisville. So if you haven't noticed, a lot of times after the police execute unarmed black men, or in this case, women, because Louisville was Brianna Taylor, the Department of Justice.
Louisville was also the one kid. Remember the kid? He was like, he had autism. He was like
Yeah.
walking home, and he was like, "Don't get away from me." That was there as well.
Yeah,
Get away
yeah,
from
yeah.
me, and they killed him.
Yeah.
I forgot his name. You know what I'm talking about, though?
I know. I forgot his name too. I feel bad.
Okay.
But the Department of Justice says, "Oh, we're going to go in and investigate these police departments because it's only a couple police departments. You know, it's not that all of them need to be investigated." Yeah. Well, the Louisville Police Department was investigated by the Department of Justice, and the review undertaken after the specialized unit killed Brianna Taylor paints a damning portrait of a department in crisis, the New York Times reports. The police department in Louisville, Kentucky, engaged in a far-ranging pattern of discriminatory law enforcement practices. The Justice Department said on Wednesday, after conducting a 2-year investigation prompted by the fatal shooting of Brianna Taylor by police in 2020, Attorney General Merrick Garland appeared in Louisville alongside the city's mayor and acting police chief, announced an agreement to overhaul practices he said led to systemic discrimination against Black people, including Brianna Taylor, a medical worker who was shot and killed by police officers assigned to a drug enforcement unit in March 2020. In a damning 90-page report, investigators painted a grim portrait of the Louisville Metro Police Department, detailing a variety of serious abuses, including excessive force, searches based on so-called no-knock warrants, car stops, detentions, and harassment of people during sweeps, and broad patterns of discrimination against Black people and people with behavioral health problems. The Attorney General said Louisville police conduct had undermined its public safety mission. They found, let me get to this part. They found, Mr. Garland said that investigators uncovered instances of blatant racism against Black residents, including the disproportionate use of traffic stops in Black neighborhoods in the Louisville area, and even the use of epithets like monkey, animal, and boy. Kristen Clark, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, said that the targeting of Black people for traffic stops and searches turned conventional law enforcement practices into, quote, weapons of oppression, submission, and fear. I don't really need to read much more because I could tell you this is not unique to Louisville. It's police department. Ty, you could talk much better than I, but I remember being in St. Louis when we were covering the protest there. People were telling us that they don't drive in certain parts of the city because they know they'll get pulled over. And I've spoken with police whistleblowers who have said the type of shit police officers say, in locker room talk about the Black people they're supposed to be protecting.
How is it now? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't really this. Yeah, to me, this is not news. It's not news. It's good that they see and they finding out what's going on, but it's not this. I mean, like I said, you got to be Black. It's like, I'm not Jewish, right? So it's some shit that's sensitive to Jewish people that I may not know about because I don't have the Jewish experience. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times I may, well, now I don't because I have more Jewish friends than I know. But a lot of times things may not be sensitive, so I wouldn't take it as serious. Or I'll be like, that ain't happening. They did what? I wouldn't. It's certain things that's never happened in my life that when I hear that happened to Jewish people, I may be like, in a certain circumstance, I'm not like that. But in certain circumstances, if you don't live that life, you will think things didn't happen. I mean, if you think about Rodney King, right? Rodney King, they said when Rodney King happened, all the white people was like, oh, I never knew. Oh, this is happening, right? Like they act like, and we've been yelling and screaming it for the longest time. And they've been 100% okay with living their life and not saying or doing nothing. My uncle got his eye socket. I mean, everybody. I didn't got beat up by the police, everything. The homies that got dropped off in enemy hoods, and that may not seem like nothing, but they can get killed. That's why they did that. You know what I'm saying? They'll hem you up and take a gun and take your gun, but don't take you because they're going to use it for something. Like, this is what the police been doing all my life. And if you ain't living in an environment like that and you don't care to know about it, you'll be thinking, it ain't that bad. The police, He lived right next door to me. You talking about Timmy's daddy? Nah, what? He don't do that. That ain't happening. And that's why LA blew up in 92. Because we were sick and tired. We're like, oh, they really think we're some bitches out here. You know what I'm saying? And so when I hear it, I think it's cool because people can see and people can be like, oh, okay, that's another thing. But it don't even matter. The people that's going to believe is already believing. The people that's not believing, you're not going to convince them. They picking a side. That's all. They're not trying to hear nothing. They don't care about nothing. They're not trying to hear about the truth. They riding with their side. And that's that's what it is. So yeah, it's cool that they got it. I hope that because of these findings that that did they get a lawsuit when old boy went to jail, or are they still in the civil?
Well, technically, the Department of Justice was supposed to do an investigation. I believe the Department of Justice was the one that charged some of the officers with civil rights violations. But the Kentucky Attorney General did not charge any of the officers. Charged one of the officers with like a minor thing.
But is there a lawsuit? I mean, like a civil suit?
Yes.
Okay, so I hope they get their money. That's all they really can get. That ain't gonna bring their case. But I hope they're able to like break the city. You know what I'm saying? Because and then they're realizing because listen, police departments across this country have been so willing to pay all kind of money to cover up for these niggas. They really ride. Every city in America, the police department has been willing. They pay out people all the time. If you can research and look up how much do like the police departments for their actions, how much do they have to pay out a year? They're so willing to do that to be able to protect their officers and have qualified immunity. Mm-hmm. They keeping it under wraps. They're so willing. They don't care about nothing. They will cover everything up. So I think it's cool, but I'm not surprised. That's for sure. That's it. If you gonna be honest and you gonna do an honest investigation, of course that's what you're gonna find. It happens. I talk to niggas I don't know, and they say the same thing. He live in New York. I live in Compton. They say the same thing. He live in the Midwest, and I live in Texas. They say the same thing. When it comes to the police and black people, that's how they feel about us. But like I said, to keep it 100, it's all of them. It ain't just one. When I talk about the police department, I hate the police department more than racists hate niggas. Period. I do. That's how much I hate the police department. Because
we should
whether you black, white, Chinese, whatever, it don't matter. When they train you under that system, when they train you to, even if you wasn't racist, when they train you under that system and they hiring niggas from Walmart and McDonald's, what you expect?
Well, we should point out also, we saw it with Tyree Nichols, but a lot of these police departments, I mean, predominantly white, but there are a good amount of black officers too.
Yeah, for sure. What? The majority of my abuse was by black police officers. What you talking about? I'm from Compton. LA Sheriff, but back in the day, Compton, you said it's now LA Sheriff, but LA, like in the city of Allen, grew up in LA, but in the city of LA, you deal with more white cops and everything. But the city of Compton, black, Hispanic, and some white cops. But it was all black and Hispanic cops and a few white cops. And they was the abusers. All of them. They're just what it is they're trained, bro. Half of them don't even realize it. And it's almost like this. I don't know if you ever remember, like when you were younger, you probably don't because you don't smoke. But when you were younger, you was like, you see people smoking weed and you hear the just say no, you're like, I ain't gonna never smoke weed. You get older, you go outside, you start hanging out, you see all your friends, it don't seem as bad as all the things. So then you start doing it and it's not as bad. And so you start smoking because everybody doing it. And now you're comfortable with it. Now you look at it different. What happens in the police department? They probably go in there probably thinking they want to help change because what's the name probably happened in their community and they want to do something different. All of a sudden, this is what we're doing. This is what's going on. If you don't do this, it's over with for you. And then they start getting that pressure and all of a sudden they do it once, They do it twice. Now they used to, and now it's just how they operate. It's like if a motherfucker cheat. At first, I don't know if I want to. Then I cheat, and then I get guilty. I feel guilty, and then it's over. And then I cheat again. After a while, I'm gonna just be cheating because I'm used to it. Now it's done. I ain't got caught. And then I'm gonna slip up and I'm gonna get caught. That's what normally happens. They slip up and do some way out shit, like kill that boy or kill any other black kid or female. You know what I'm saying? And then they slip and they go to jail. But they don't get that aggressive because that was their first time doing it. They get that aggressive because that was their 30th time doing it, and they used to it. They ain't gonna get caught. You gonna say that. You gonna say that. This is what we gonna say, and we gonna go.
We should remember, beyond just the awful things that they were caught saying, monkeys, apes, these kind of things, the reason they did this investigation was because of the Breonna Taylor murder. Remember, they went in and felt the need in the middle of the night to go in commando style with a no-knock warrant for a woman who had no criminal history at all, was a nurse. She was treating patients at the beginning of COVID. So think about what the mentality of, we can't just, if we have questions, call her down to the station. We have to go in the middle of the night, barging through her door with a no-knock warrant. I don't think they would do that if it were me. Actually, I know they wouldn't do that if it were me. But they felt the need to do this to a woman with no criminal history, who by all accounts was a great woman and a great family member and friend. So it's not just the disgusting things they say and the way they talk. It's feeling like
approaches. No, I know, nigga. They approaches like a loose pit bull. You don't know who the owner is, and he's just out roaming. That's how they approach us, with aggression. That's how they see us, bro. But you know, I would say more. It wouldn't happen probably to you. It wouldn't happen to, I'll say, more wealthier people. Wealthier people, they'll be like, okay, we'll knock on the door, or turn yourself in. It's a lot of poor white people get ran up in and on and everything. That's the thing that they used to do. They did. Both of my brothers is doing life right now. That's what they did to them. They did a no knock warrant on them as well. That's they do that punk shit. But the code thing about those no knock warrants back in '97, you never even realized. Oh, sometimes these niggas be going to the wrong address. Now imagine that. That's the heartbreaking shit about her story, is that there was no way that she could have prevented it. Just like old boy in Texas. What's his name?
Botham John.
Botham John. It was nothing he could have done. He was in his home. She was in her home. It was nothing that she could have done to prevent that. That's Absolutely. The cold part about it. It's nothing that we can discuss and have a discussion about. Say, oh man, well, she could have did. I wish she would have. It's nothing. She was sleeping in her own house, not doing nothing.
Yep. I want to show this clip. This is from when I was in Louisville talking to Brianna's aunt, Bianca Austin, and we'll react. Kind of talk about what police have done to drive people out of here.
I mean, well, every day they came out and, you know, they harassed us. They gave us like a curfew. And it just got to the point where it was just overwhelming, exhausting, and it was just continual arrest. And, you know, I don't want people to just continue to get charges brought up on them just for being out here, you know. So we had the memorial up. I believe it happened twice, but the last time they came at like 4 o'clock in the morning, took everything. They had dump trucks, garbage cans, you name it, tore it all down, took it to the city's dump.
There's a cockiness with the police, like where the people are complacent here. Like things like this have been happening forever, right? Like there is people still right now today for years have been waiting on a plethora of video and all kind of stuff where they just feel like they don't have to do anything. We don't have to give you anything. Like, mind you, this happened in March 13th. Like, it didn't blow up until May something. They still hadn't filled out a police report. They still hadn't put out anything because they don't feel like they have to. This man literally lied to a judge. Where's the judge at? The judge has not demanded like nothing to happen to this man. This is crazy. Like everybody's supposed to be in the house. How are we still being murdered? How is that happening? How is these videos still coming out of the police like Ahmaud Arbery? And then you had Ahmaud Arbery, then you had, I think, somebody else before, Jacob Blake, and then you had Brianna, and then you had Floyd. All of these things just happened like boom, 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 boom in COVID.
Dante Wright, Andrew Brown.
Yeah, all of these things, like how? This is COVID. We're supposed to be under lockdown. Like, how is this happening? They just said, oh, she's selling drugs, or she's really a law-abiding citizen with no record, with a whole EMT, all of these good things that's going for her, and you never really actually did any police work. Like, you never actually, I don't think they actually ever followed her any place. They actually didn't even know what car she really drove. They actually didn't even know who was in her home that night, because had you been doing real police work, you would have knew it was just Brianna and another guy in that apartment. And her and Jamarcus used to go together.
So those were Brianna's aunts talking about the culture of police and making the point that, unfortunately, Brianna was not anything new in Louisville.
No, it ain't anything, but it ain't anything new anywhere, bro. I mean, look at what happened to Laquan McDonald. They all lied. That shit that come out to Ron Emanuel was re-elected before he even put out the videotape. And they were sitting there lying, and they knew all that.
16 shots in a cover-up.
16 shots in the cover-up. And they knew it, just like what the thing that she talked about with Ahmaud
Arbery in Georgia, yeah.
Ahmaud Arbery. That's the thing that was the thing that blew up. Damn, I'm forgetting her name. What's her name? I'm sorry.
Brianna.
That's what blew up Brianna. Remember, Arbery came out. That shit went to sleep. George Floyd happened. George Floyd blew up. Then social media was like, what about Arbery? What about Breonna Taylor? Without George Floyd, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. Probably. Because they can cover it up. You can't you try to request a FOIA, request a video. You know how long they try to take for that? When we know when those black cops did it, they had that shit out in 3 days.
And by the way, they're killing environmental protesters now too. We covered in Georgia, Cop City, which is a totally unnecessary $90 million militarized police compound that they want to build in the forest in Atlanta. It's going to be, it's basically being built right on top or right next to a 75% black community. They don't want it, but they're doing it anyway. It's going to have widespread explosives training going off constantly. So enjoy that in your neighborhood.
A mock community.
And in January,
with projects and liquor stores and check cashing places.
And in January, there's been nonviolent protests been going on there for over a year. Folks who call themselves forest defenders, kind of similar to Standing Rock, were out there in the forest, just trying to protect the forest. Some of them, attach themselves to the trees to stop them from cutting down the trees to build this center. And the police killed a 24-year-old Tortuguita, and they claimed that this protester shot at them first. Of course, they provided no evidence of that, but video came out later, not of the actual incident, but of police officers saying, oh, you shot your own man, basically saying that the police officer that was shot was not shot by the protester, but friendly fire. And they killed this environmental protester. They haven't provided any evidence that environmental protesters shot at them first. And oh, by the way, they've arrested nearly 50 mostly nonviolent protesters in the forest, and they're charging them with domestic terrorism. So I'm not, me and you might differ. I'm not saying every last cop is a bastard, but I am saying this is becoming mass execution and fascism, and nothing's going to change because we have politicians from Obama to Biden to Trump, all of them that basically fetishize the police, prop them up as, the guardians of the galaxy for political reasons, think they need to be tough on crime as people continue to get murdered.
Do you think there's good like Ku Klux Klan members?
Ku Klux Klan members? No.
You don't think there's no good ones?
No.
Some people do.
So you're saying that Ku Klux Klan and police are the same to you?
What you talking about, man? I'm talking about a group. Whatever goes on in a group, birds of a feather flock together until it's police, and then it's a bad apple. Come on, bro. How many goddamn bad apples we gonna have? What y'all putting in the soil, my nigga? There's too many bad apples. You fucking up the tree. Holly said the violin. I know the violin sound good. Your ass probably ain't been through shit. That's why you don't get it, but it's okay. Everybody don't have empathy. You gotta understand what empathy is. That's how shit change. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have empathy. You gotta be able to step outside your own shoes and get into somebody else's shoes, because just if it's good for you, don't mean it's good for somebody else. And if I have problems, that don't mean your problems is less significant than mine. I'm just telling mine. You know what I'm saying? So if you got some problems, start you a channel and speak on it. But right now we speaking on this, and you should be more worried about it too, because you know what? At a certain point, it's gonna start hitting y'all, bro. It only hit us first. It hits black people first, and then it trickles down, bro. And then it's gonna get to where you're gonna start seeing a whole lot of other races and stuff getting killed and doing all that stuff. It's gonna trickle down because it's a system that's put in place, and they just respond and react.
Well, it's already trickling down.
Yeah,
Look at East Palestine. This is a poor white community that just got poisoned.
But that's been like it's been like that. You know what I'm saying? It's been like that for poor whites. They don't be getting it. I ain't gonna act like I ain't never been no poor white person, but I know I've seen them when I went to Flint and everything. Them niggas living bad too. They going through it too. It was a lot of white people in Flint that didn't have water and was suffering the same thing, getting the same scars, getting the same kids is dying, family is dying. When you poor, when you poor, they can take advantage of you because you don't have no resources to do nothing. You can't go and sue. You can't go and get no lawyer.
So PP, I want to respond to this. Why are you leaving out the part they threw firebombs? I could tell you, having been at Standing Rock, I haven't been to Cop City, but having been at Standing Rock and many other places, there are cases where protesters would throw things at police, Molotov cocktails, firebombs, whatever. But there are also a lot of cases, and I've seen it with my own eyes, where police will themselves start fires and then frame it as, oh, the protesters are starting fires or lighting up cars, so that because they know 99% of the media is just going to regurgitate whatever the hell the police tell them. So in this case, in Cop City, there were some protesters who threw stuff at police, but there were also protesters who did nothing that were arrested with domestic terrorism, including legal observers. Ty, when you and I were arrested in St. Louis, we were arrested in 2017 while covering a Black Lives Matter protester. What did the police do? Who'd they arrest first? The legal observers wearing the yellow hats, which, by the way, is illegal. The legal observers are not supposed to be touched because they're there to observe what the police are doing. And then they arrested the journalists. So they arrested the legal observers and the journalists first so that there would be no eyes on what the police were doing with the protesters. So PP, I could tell you, were there some people in Cop City that were arrested after they genuinely threw stuff at police? Yeah. And those people know the risks they're taking if they're going to do that. But there are a whole lot of people, not just at Cop City, but in a whole lot of other places that are being wrongly arrested because the police in this country are out of control and they're being charged with domestic terrorism. So they are linked. And by the way, I looked through some of the arrest reports in Cop City. There were people arrested and charged with domestic terrorism for crimes like having flares on them because they were protesting in the forest. Well, you kind of need flare to have light if you're going to live in the forest 24/7. There were people arrested for domestic terrorism for things like running away from the police, and police fell and scraped their knee. And a protester running away from the police was charged with domestic terrorism. You know who else gets charged with domestic terrorism and things like that? Timothy McVeigh, who blew up the Oklahoma City building. So you're equating people protesting in the forest with Timothy McVeigh? Come on.
It's a trap. Like you gotta read what that means, domestic terrorism. This is what they was doing to gang members in LA. It's a trap. So they can take all your possessions. They can do a whole lot to you. They can stop you from flying. It's a trap, bro. And they stretch you out for that. But I'll say this, you know what? Christina has a super chat. It says, I'm sorry that you have to deal with the grossly ignorant people on the chat. Now, that's what we're here to deal with the chat. The chat ain't nothing. They supposed to troll, so ain't nobody tripping on them. But
well,
PP,
to tell you the truth, we recently got a big subscriber gain because we're the only ones covering the East Palestine, and there were some conservatives who subscribed because we were covering the Trump rally, this and that. And I said, great. I mean, we're not going to change our tune. I am who I am, but maybe, maybe I'll learn some stuff from you. Maybe you'll learn some stuff from me. But I would say to people that might be a little more conservative, I mean, the video don't lie. All these police. Go ahead.
A lot of people don't want to be honest, bro. That's the whole thing. They don't want to be honest. If you be honest, we can have an honest conversation with you. I love to talk to people that got different viewpoints than I do because I don't know everything, bro. And I'm conservative about some things, and I'm liberal about some things. I'm not the type of nigga that I don't give a fuck about none of these niggas. I ain't the type of nigga that's gonna be on here trying to jump on the team. You know what I'm saying? White people ain't love black people ever since I've been growing up. I ain't bending my ass over for no white person. So I'm not gonna just be on no team. I'm gonna respect my mind and respect my feelings. So I don't. If you conservative, that's all good. We can have a conversation. I'd rather talk to people that don't agree with me than talk to somebody that agree with me because I'm only talking to the I'm only preaching to the church. But PP, check this out. What did PP say again? Because I ain't tripping.
You forgot. He said PP said you forgot the part that they threw fire bombs or whatever at police.
Yeah. Fuck all that. I don't care. Check this out. They can throw fire bombs. They can throw bricks. They can do all that, bro. If you have somebody that molested you all your life, and then you grow up and you see them, and then they still trying to molest you, but now you older and you bigger and you kind of protect yourself. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? I got built up animosity because of this shit. This is trauma. Trauma happens. If a motherfucker get molested, you don't think they're going to have trauma? If a woman get raped, you don't think they're going to have trauma all their life? They've been raped? A motherfucker get beat by your parents just beating you because he's an alcoholic or a drug addict? You don't think you don't have trauma? So every time I go outside and because I'm with three motherfuckers and we got our pants sagged, they're going to pull us over. They're going to beat us. They're going to put us in the wrong hood to try to get us killed. I'm supposed to okay, well, let's go deal with these police officers that may beat the shit out of us and kill us. And let's just have and march that shit out. We ain't turning no cheeks. I'm with all that. I don't care about none of that. You know what I'm saying? You can't try to dictate how I respond to your abuse to me. You don't know where I'm at. You wanna abuse me? Okay, you're gonna take the risk. You're gonna take the risk of my response because you don't know what my response may be. You know what I'm saying? Just like what happened in Dallas. When old boy went off and got them police officers. You don't know what a person's response will be when you push them up against the wall because it's all about survival. Because the police is a man just like I'm a man. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm about that and I'm ready to go, we're going to hold court right here. And that's what happens when you have a history of abuse. You push people to that. And then the only person that get vilified is the motherfucker that went off. But they don't tell you about, oh, yeah, he went there. Then when he went to jail, he got beat by the COs and all that. What's the little kid that hung himself because he was in jail for 3 years out here that he got released and then he ended up hanging himself? The little young kid, the black kid that was like in jail in Rikers Island for like 3 years without any they brought out tapes. I don't know if y'all saw the documentary. They brought out tapes. Them COs was beating the dog shit out of that boy. But that's what they do. Y'all ain't never done nothing. You go to the county jail. They have Thunderdomes is what they call it, where the COs make you fight and they betting. I mean, these people that's already enemies and stuff like that, so they ain't tripping and you gonna fight. Yeah, that's cool. But when you got a CO that's supposed to be trying to keep some order and they with all the bullshit, they bigger gangs than us. They're domestic terrorists to keep it 100.
Ty,
they can do that because there's no regulation.
Ty, I don't like these comments coming from people because you don't know the behind the scenes. Ty calls me every day asking me for his own network. And you all are asking for more ties, so we might have to meet in the middle.
You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have to do something like that. You know what I mean?
But you got to get you got to get your connection fixed.
Yeah, is it still tripping?
Yeah, you're still buffering.
Ah, okay. It's probably because I'm not wired in. I got this on Wi-Fi, but I'm using the other. So, but check this out though. So we can have an honest conversation, because if you're honest, bro, we gonna meet somewhere and we're gonna be in agreement. So anybody that agree with me or disagree with me, bro, if we're talking about an honest conversation, because a lot of people don't like to have honest conversations. A lot of people don't like to consider things. They just they'll probably be quiet and shut up just so they can say what they want to get their shit off. You know what I'm saying? Versus trying to get some understanding. That's what it's about. Trying to get some understanding, bro. Don't minimize my experience because a police officer lived by you. Yeah, he may be a good person, and I'm not gonna undermine my experience with that police officer. Yeah, he may be a good person over there, but when he over here, he a terrorist because he see us as animals. It's a fact.
Well, I also think you just have to look at the money too. I mean, look at these police departments all over this country. I don't care what you are on the political spectrum. If you think the police need the same equipment that they need in Iraq and Afghanistan and all over this world that we're using to kill people across the globe, militarized tanks, shields, visors, you see police roll up into these communities with his 20, 30 protesters where they look like SEAL Team 6. I mean, it's absurd. When you look at in Akron and Cleveland and Flint and Detroit and name your place, the police are making up 60, 70% of the budget. Meanwhile, food programs go underfunded or not funded at all. Community programs for the youth go underfunded. Name your program. Infrastructure goes underfunded, and the police budget keeps going up. You have police unions that have bought off politicians. The Chicago Police Union, the New York Police Unions. They're the biggest gangs in the world, these police unions. And a lot of these politicians, including Democrats, Andrew Cuomo, besides sexually harassing and being a scumbag, he was taking the most money of any governor from police unions. And, you know, look at Eric Adams, said he was, you know, he is a cop. He said he was going to come in here and, you know, clean up crime. Well, in most of these places, the crime is out of control because contrary to the bullshit CNN tells you, people are starving. We live in a gilded age. I don't care what the unemployment number is. People are working longer hours for less money. Wages are stagnant.
And fuck the unemployed. Fuck those numbers, bro. Okay, yeah. Can't nobody survive out $15 an hour. Talking about. It don't matter. Motherfuckers don't want those type of jobs. They need to have an economic plan. You can't. More policing ain't gonna solve no issues in a community that's full of poverty. You know what I'm saying? Because you got everybody trying to grab that last little crumb, and they're gonna fight and kill and scratch each other for it because they don't see a future. You can't try to stop. You need to get to the inception of the problem. And that's the economic and social issues in a community. You just put more police in. That's what we gonna deal with the police. You got to understand that we trying to survive. So we're going to join gangs. We're going to do what we got to do because we don't want to have, I'm not going to be sitting here stressed out about when I'm going to feed my baby. You know what I'm saying? That's what a young nigga think. You know what I'm saying? Older moms and stuff like that. They ain't got time. They trying to feed their kids and everything. And they want their kids to live in a safe place. And they don't want they neighbor's son or even their older son to be out in the street. But they know what the community is because it ain't no hope. When you got a motherfucker hopeless and helpless, I don't care if you black, white, Chinese, whatever, you're going to respond exactly the same, bro. And then when you got the government against you, you really going to do it. This would be one thing if, okay, we just pour over here, but then people are understanding and they trying to help and they police your area kind of right. It'd be kind of cool. But when everybody's against you, what do you expect people to do, man? You put a sheep in the corner, the meekest animal in the world. At some point, he's gonna fight his way up out that corner because he want to live.
Sorry to disappoint the people, but I got to go take care of my child. We'll put this on a loop so you can listen to Ty 24/7. But no, Ty and I will talk. We'll have him on more often.
You ain't gonna read no super chats.
I am gonna read super chats. Super chats. But we'll definitely have Ty on more. He has thoughts on politics too. and corrupt politicians as well. So
welcome. I used to be out there, man.
He used to be out there, but then, I couldn't get any work done because he wanted to fuck around the whole time. No, I'm kidding. Megan, welcome, new member Megan. Welcome, new Status Coup member Lauren. Welcome, Charlie, $10. Thank you, Charlie. Jan, 1999. Thank you for your continued reporting on this. Don't see it anywhere else. Ain't that crazy? Literally, a petrochemical bomb just went off over Ohio and Pennsylvania. They covered it for 5 minutes. It's unbelievable. I'll tell you what, if a major chemical bomb went up over New York City or Washington, D.C. or L.A., they'd be covering it right now because it would be affecting the reporters themselves and their kids. They don't give a shit because it doesn't happen near them. Tony D, $2. Any update on the train cars in East Palestine? From what I was told, the video I showed yesterday were chemical cars. It looked like chemical cars going through that neighborhood for 10 to 15 minutes straight. So that's what they were. Zach, welcome, new YouTube member Zach. Appreciate it.
What's up with Zach?
Welcome, Rita signed up as a member. Appreciate it. Welcome, MJR became a YouTube member. Thank you. Proxia, like that name. $10, super sticker. Welcome.
Super sticker? Oh, Phillip. That's that new thing that YouTube do.
Yeah, Philip became a YouTube member. Welcome, Philip. Tony D, donate whatever you can to help the residents. Yes, and by the way, we are going to start adding under the videos. So today's live stream, but also previous videos, we're going to start adding GoFundMes for the residents. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't have the capacity to vet every single GoFundMe because there's a lot of them. What I can vet is I trust the person that put this list together. She's a resident. I've interviewed her. So I know that what we are posting are GoFundMes from people who live in East Palestine. I don't know what kind of people they are. I don't know if good, bad,
but
or
you do
otherwise.
know what kind of people, what kind of person the person that gave him the list is. So
yes,
he believed in her, so it should be all good.
Yeah, I trust the person who's given me the list. So we're going to start putting those individual GoFundMes and do what you can. If you can give each person a little, think about how you would need the help if the roles were reversed. So we'll put those links under each video. David, $1.99. I have a T-shirt for Lewis. Okay. Louis. I'll tell him, David. David, can I quote Eazy-E, $1.99? You could quote whoever you want. Love it.
Easy. Real motherfucking G's.
Reezy Pro, $10 for Lewis's travel expenses. Still don't know how worried we should be in Northeast Ohio. Well, put it this way. Generally, when toxic chemicals explode and the wind takes it north, east, west, and south, you probably don't need to be as worried as the people who live in East Palestine or within the 5 to 10 mile radius. But I would be concerned if you live in the general region, because that plume and the weather definitely took it further. There were people reporting shit on their cars in northeast states, like soot all over their cars. And it wasn't everyone getting pollen at the same time. There's people in Virginia, West Virginia, who have reached out to me ever since this. Their families and their kids themselves and their animals are symptomatic. So, I'm not a doctor, but I would definitely, check yourself out. Make sure your water's okay. Make sure, maybe get blood taken. Make sure you're not consuming anything that could be, making you sick. Thank you so much. I think I got to all of them. Thank you to the new members. A reminder, tomorrow night, 7:00 Eastern, will be our monthly members call, which you could join. We'll send you a link through Zoom. So if you're a Status Coup member before 7:00 tomorrow night, you will get the Zoom link. It's a lot of fun. We usually go for an hour or two. It'll be myself, Lewis, Tina's going to join. I think Zane is going to join, Colin. And you don't have to be on camera if you don't want. You could just mute your video camera and just listen if you want. If you don't want to ask a question like on camera, but you could ask a question in the chat. So all are welcome, shy or not shy. We'll answer your questions. Ty, tell the people where they could see you on the Twitter or elsewhere.
On Twitter, you can follow me on Tommy TOMMIE _ Taife TYHEFE.
That's Tommy _ Taife TYHEFE.
Yeah. That's it. Until further notice, I got something going on. Yeah. I got something going on, but I'm gonna give y'all the game once I start being on here a little more often in the near future. Because I think I'm gonna start the section back up. You know what I'm saying? So the color.
Well, we might have to
section,
talk
you know
because
what I'm
I
saying?
think YouTube's gonna demonetize every one of your videos because of your bad mouth. So.
Oh no, I heard that you just gotta like not talk, not curse for like 5 or 10 minutes and then you're good.
Oh, really? Okay. We'll see about that.
But you curse though. But
I don't curse every 10 seconds.
Your voice is softer because you're white. I know.
Okay.
I get it.
Got it. Humorous, $5. People don't understand what racism is. They don't know how it affects them, and they don't know who has the capability to cause it. I hear you, humorous. No, I mean, listen, I'm a white dude, so I think as a white person, you should just say, I'll never understand fully or experience fully what black people, let's not forget brown people who are discriminated against by police all the time, Native Americans, absolutely not. But you should have empathy and you should try to learn and understand. You should try to learn and understand as best you can, because to me, it's, an injustice to anyone is an injustice to everyone. That's how I view the world.
Somebody said I need an OnlyFans.
You need an OnlyFans? I won't comment on that.
If OnlyFans was as lucrative for men as it is for women, I would probably, you know what I'm saying?
It might be lucrative for you. I don't know. I mean, people say you look like Charles Barkley, so.
Nah. I'm not gonna get the desired audience. So nah.
All right. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back at it tomorrow. We're continuing to investigate, too, on East Palestine. So we might have news tomorrow with some new developments. And also, as a reminder, we're sending Lewis back there next week on Monday. So if it's within your means, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hey, hold on. Pick up Arlene Chambers. Arlene's Chambers chat.
Well, yeah, Arlene,
that part.
You want to have a curse off? Who curses more?
You.
No.
Yes.
Not even close.
Absolutely close.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? My vocabulary low key kind of limited, so when I'm flowing, I gotta put them little shits and you know what I mean. You gotta do all that so it can flow. You know what I'm saying?
Ty today looks like one of the cults from the Omega Man.
Omega Man.
I've never heard of the Omega Man.
Is that like a documentary?
I don't know.
Said $50.
Heyo, humorous. The government is not against you, my friend. It's not against anybody. We don't have a government anymore. Unless you want to call the United Corporations of America your government, they're the ones that bought and paid for our government. From your lips, if there is a God's ear. As I say, we don't have a government. We have a multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate masquerading as a government.
Full screen your shit. So they can see the flag.
We live in the United Corporations of America. Our government has been hijacked. We are a multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate that has hijacked the government, masquerading as a government. We live in a legalized bribery system where American citizens are poisoned by their government, and then there's a cover-up, and they are left to slowly die. That's where we live.
Who do you remember who made you that flag?
That's from Adbusters. And let me tell you about these motherfuckers. I cursed. These Adbusters, it's their flag, but they've made a lot of money off of it because I have it behind me and people say, where do people get the flag? And I tell them to go to adbusters.com. So I reached out to Adbusters. Not that I'm a businessman per se, but I said,
tell them to sponsor the shit.
I said, maybe we could do some type of distribution deal, or if people come from Status Coup, we get a little something.
Yeah, like a sponsorship. Like you could be saying go there and then you put your code in, they get a discount and you get something, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And they basically told me to kindly go touch grass. So anyway.
Hey, do your full screen again. Tell them who built that. That's a nice ass studio, man. Let me see.
Yeah. A young gentleman did build that for me. A very nice studio.
From
Ty
scratch
Bayless.
too, huh? The walls and everything, huh?
You did a good job. You were paid handsomely from what I remember.
I wasn't paid shit. You gave me a computer.
All right. I'm going to get in trouble with my wife. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good night. Thank you, Ty.
For sure. Thank you, bro.